On the docket tonight, we're getting you ready for the next big trial here on Court TV. Sean Pickett is accused of killing his mother and his own dog, and he claims that evil voices in his head told him to do it. Court TV legal correspondent Joylyn Nakron has more details on the upcoming Possessed by Evil murder trial.
I was hearing evil voices. I was hearing evil voices. This is a statement made by Sean Pickett after reporting to authorities the death of his mother and pit bull named Chico. Their bodies were found in their residence in Avoca, Wisconsin. It was Pickett who called them there in early May of 2021, the day after Mother's Day. When authorities arrived, Pickett's mother, Susan, was observed having bruising all over her head and face, while Chico had multiple wounds to the chest. Pickett, on the other hand, had dried blood on the front of his pants, tops of his tennis shoes, and front of his shirt. When questioned, Pickett initially pointed blame at his mother's boyfriend, saying this boyfriend held him hostage and left him to take the blame. Moments later, he walked this back.
Count 1 alleges first-degree intentional homicide in that it alleges that Mr. Pickett did cause the death of Susan D. Pickett with intent to kill that person, a Class A felony.
He said what really happened was he, quote, blacked out, thought he was, quote, possessed, and was, quote, hearing evil voices in his head. Quote, the evil in my head said I had to kill my mom and Chico in order to go to peace, in order to find rest. There was people inside my head saying that once I kill them, that I will go to rest. He admitted he believed he had killed his mother and dog with a, quote, metal bar and knife. My mom first, then Chico. I stabbed her and beat her with that metal bar. Pickett is charged with first-degree intentional homicide for the death of his mother and the mistreatment of animals for the cruel treatment of Chico, which resulted in his death. If convicted, he faces a maximum sentence of imprisonment for life.
Still with me to discuss, Sue Ann Robinson, Carmen Rowe, and Molly Palmer. Carmen, let me start with you. What's the very first thing you think of if you were the attorney that you would use as a defense in this case?
Insanity, period, full stop. This is a case where mental health is clearly an issue. Whether how it's going to be developed, I don't know, but, I would get ready for that type of defense in this case, no question.
And what does that mean, Molly, when you do an insanity defense? And let me just, because people hear, oh, insanity, not competent to stand trial. Two very different things. We know that, right? You can become competent to stand trial to assist in your defense. That's separate and apart from the insanity defense. So let me just repeat some of the things he said when he was arrested at the scene. Remember, he called 911. He called 911 and said, my mother and dog are dead. They get there, he's arrested, but he had blacked out. He thought he was possessed. He was hearing evil voices. I was hearing evil voices. The evil in my head said I had to kill my mom and Chico in order to go to peace. Molly, your thoughts?
Right. Well, you're right, Ashley. So we have two very different things in the legal system that we turn to with a mental health case: competency to stand trial, but then the insanity defense. And for the insanity defense, it varies state by state, but essentially what you have to show is that the defendant was acting under a mental disease or defect that rendered them unable to distinguish between right and wrong. So you're looking at criminal responsibility. The jury usually is tasked with deciding whether or not in that moment the individual could distinguish between moral good, lawful conduct or not. And in this case, I think it's so interesting that he's talking about evil voices, right? Is the jury going to interpret this as somebody who could differentiate between right and wrong? And maybe even if he was acting under a delusion, it wasn't one that prevented him from making that distinction. That is the nuance of the insanity defense that we're going to see play out in this trial. And it really can go either way. As Carmen said, the way the evidence comes out in these cases is always interesting. It's always individualized. But I think this has a shot of going in either direction, either not guilty by reason of insanity or guilty.
So, Sue Ann, I'm going to say, as a former judge, one of the things that would get people emotional, yes, it's bad enough he's accused of killing his mother, but people in general also do not like to see harm to animals. And so we know that juries find cases based on the facts the law beyond a reasonable doubt or not, but how much does this affect the emotion when, I mean, it's horrible allegations that he not only killed his mother, he also killed his dog.
I think it's terrible. It's going to look terrible. I think that's why he came out right away with, I blacked out. Because if he's in a blackout state, then he doesn't have the requisite intent, right? He doesn't have the mens rea to commit first-degree murder. So I think him saying that he blacked out, I think the issue and how the evidence unfolds is important, but what's going to be equally as important, especially in an insanity defense, for it to stick to me with a jury, if I was in the juror's seat, is going to be if he has a history of mental illness, is he seeking treatment? Does he have a history of abusing animals that led up to this as the pinnacle? Or is this just something that, he did in a blackout state and just went crazy, for lack of a better term, one day? Or was there something leading up to it, clues and signs? He's been on medication, he's been off his meds for days, he went into a psychosis. I think for me as a juror now in this day and time where we're well aware of mental health issues, well aware of people getting treatment for mental health, it's going to be whether or not he had an ongoing history of mental health problems.
Great point. You're right. That's going to be a consideration, and the jury's going to take that into account if he does have that history. Court TV coverage of Wisconsin versus Sean Pickett begins Tuesday morning of next week with opening statements.